Hi, everyone, and welcome to our live event. I am so excited to have you all here. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are joining us around the world. If you're tuning in from Facebook, from our Facebook group, or our YouTube channel, we are so excited to have you all here. Now, I know that we're just trying to connect our Facebook page to the event, so we will work on that as I am going. So to all of you that are out there listening, please let us know where you're listening in from. We'd love to know what country you're from. And also during the live, you guys can ask questions. Now, these events are usually part of our Guide and Grow Village. So every month we invite a different expert from around the world to join us and talk about a particular topic of interest. And this month we have a very special guest joining us, which I will introduce to you soon. And we're going to be talking about all things independence. So we know that in Montessori, independence is such a huge part of it. And it's really a life skill. And these life skills are something that we're going to talk about and why it's so important. So typically we do these as part of the Guide and Grow Village. Now, for all of you guys that are interested in knowing a little bit more about our village, we're going to pop the link in the comments. We've opened this live event to the general public today. And it's basically going to take you through anywhere from 0 to 3 years. Now, we're going to dive into independence with Gavin McCormack. Now, if you don't know who Gavin is, I'm going to bring him onto the screen. Welcome, Gavin. Give us a wave.
Hello, everybody.
For those who don't know who Gavin McCormack is, you should know. He is one of the most influential and passionate Montessorians that I've met. We've had some amazing discussions in the past, and I know that today is no exception to that. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to read a quick bio for Gavin. So Gavin's an educator, an author, and I've got one of his books here that I'll be going through a little bit later on. And a children's author as well, and is passionate about education and pedagogy. He's taught for more than 20 years in several countries and also teaches adults through teacher workshops around the globe. Gavin is an influential advocate for innovative education practices and recently co-founded Upschool, which is one of the most exciting projects that I've ever heard about. And this is a way that he's going to bring free and purposeful education to the world. So Gavin, did you want to say hi and introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here. I feel honored to be invited. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for allowing me to come on to your show. I'm a big fan of yours and your work, and we are closely aligned in our philosophies. Hence, we've become very good friends over the last year or so.
Awesome. For everyone listening and watching out there, please let us know where you're listening in from, what country you're from. If you are watching the replay, because I know a lot of people won't get to watch this live, we are going to be recording it. We'll have it available for a replay. So just hashtag replay in the comments. If you are tuning in live anytime during this live session, we're going to have a presentation from Gavin, and then we're going to deep dive into some Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to pop them in the comments, and we'll definitely show them up on the screen so that you will be able to have your question answered live. So we've got a hello. Hi, I'm from Canada. Hello there. So Gavin, I'm going to pass it over to you. We're going to go into your presentation, and we'll see where the discussion leads after that.
Okay, so just while you're moving over to that presentation, Sylvia, let me just introduce myself to all of your listeners. So my name is Gavin McCormack. I'm actually a teacher, 25 years in the making. Born and bred in the United Kingdom, I moved to France, ended up traveling around the world and found myself living here in the wonderful country of Australia, where I then worked in an Islamic school for 10 years, which was really fun. And then I became a Montessori teacher. I then became a Montessori school principal, where I ran a Montessori school for quite a number of years over here in Sydney. And I'm now the Montessori ambassador for Australia via Montessori Australia, which is one of the governing bodies here in Australia. And I'm also the co-founder of Upschool.co, which helps bring purposeful education, or what we call in Montessori, big work, to everybody around the world for free. And we currently have around about 60 to 90,000 children coming online every week to embark on this wonderful work. So yes, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much, Sylvia. So would you like me to share my presentation now?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to add that into the stream as we go. We've got a couple of hellos from Sydney, Australia. Shout out to everyone from South Carolina and also California, but living in Japan. That's amazing. I love seeing everyone from all around the world. It's incredible. So I'm just going to add Gavin's presentation. There we go.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you. Now, sorry about the, you can see all of my menu and everything, but I can't seem to get rid of that, so never mind. We'll just go from here. So look, I've made a short presentation to present to you today, and this is all about a take on the old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. I believe quite the opposite. I believe that it takes a child to raise the village. Hence, our whole discussion today is around independence. Now, as a teacher of 25 years, I must admit that for around about 10 of those years, I stood at the front, I did all the talking, the children did all the listening, and they sometimes had their fingers on their lips, and I even made them ask for permission to go to the toilet. I would never, ever do that now. And I made some big faux pas in my past, but I was young and I was new, and I didn't really value the child's independence or their capabilities. And what I want to do this morning with you is share part of what I've learned in my journey as an educator over the last 20 or so years. So it takes a child to raise a village. So how can we develop essential skills such as love, empathy, understanding, resilience to help cultivate the leaders of tomorrow? We all know that the world is in a real pickle. We've got wars, drought, floods, we've got climate change. It's all going wrong. And I put it down to the fact that we haven't put our trust in our youngest citizens who will be the leaders of tomorrow. If we want tomorrow to be bright with clean air and wonderfully, peaceful environments for all and insects, animals running free, then we have to make sure that we understand that hope lies behind the door of every classroom in the world, and it's sitting on the carpet. And hence, I've got this picture on the screen right here, because this is a school that I actually helped make in Nepal. And as you can see, there's a lot of learning taking place. There's leadership, there's mentorship, everyone's happy, there's learning, but there isn't an adult in sight, and it's a very important part of this presentation. Okay, let's get started. So we'll start with a Maria Montessori quote. Maria Montessori said, "This is the foundation of everything that I do, and I'm sure that you do too as parents, as teachers and guides, is we must model the behavior we wish to view in our children." This is a fact. My father often told me, do as I say, not as I do. But I did what he did. I didn't do what he said. I did what he did because that's what children do. They mimic and they model. So the question is, how can we give our children the wings to fly whilst creating intelligent, empathetic leaders for tomorrow? Well, my answer and my advice is it's all about choice and independence. And the reason I've got this picture on the screen here, it's a very terrible picture of myself. I was extremely sick on this day. Actually, I had terrible food poisoning. 1 minute later, I was violently ill. However, this picture is really important because that little boy with the blue t-shirt with that big beaming smile is why we do everything that we do. Why we're parents, why we go through everything that we go through as teachers, parents, carers, guides. Everything that we do for children is because of that smile. That big, blue, beaming smile coming at you is what you want. And that's actually a good measure of success of anything. If your children are happy, then you're succeeding. You're doing something right. It's really important that we just take it back to the basics and think, if we're doing something right, our children will be happy within the process. Now, this may look daunting and scary and somewhat freaky, but this is actually a model of a child. This is called homunculus. And it was developed by a group of researchers in Washington. And over a period of several years, these researchers had a look at the organs in a child's body and how they played a part in the cognitive input into children's brains between 0 and 7 years old. And then what they did is they enlarged or they shrunk the organs of the body in relation to the cognitive input. Now take a look at this. Look at the size of those hands. That tells you that whenever you want your children to learn something new or engage with some kind of process, they've got to be able to touch it. If they're not touching it, you're failing them because they are absolutely massive. Look at the size of the mouth and the tongue. If you can allow them to talk about it and have a conversation about it, or even taste it, the learning is huge. What we noticed from this model is the ears are non-existent. And in many classrooms or households around the world, what we do is we talk to our children, we lecture them, we give them advice, we stand at the front of the classroom, we say, I'm going to teach you all about volcanoes. Listen carefully, I will impart all of my knowledge into your brain, and then you'll be smart. But actually, it's a huge failure. What we should be saying is, I'm going to inspire you about volcanoes, and then I'm going to allow you to touch all of this stuff. Then I'm going to allow you to build something, and then I'm going to allow you to talk about it with your partner. Then we are succeeding with our students and with our children at home. So the old saying of don't touch, children should be seen and not heard, this is completely wrong. Children should be seen and heard, and they should be touching everything they possibly can, obviously with safety in mind. But this is really, really important, and this is research-based. Actually, when I was at school, my teacher told me to sit on my hands because I was touching everything. And now, she's probably really upset because she knows that she's failed me if she's watching this lecture. Now, let's have a look at this. This is really important. These are a couple of boys from my class that I used to teach. I'll tell you a few points before I talk about them. How can we give our students agency? Agency is a key buzzword around the world now, all the way from 0 to 16. We want agency with our children, and we want purpose. What does it look like? Well, first thing is education's two-way street. We shouldn't be thinking of our students as empty vessels that we can fill up with knowledge. We should be seeing them as actually they're half of the knowledge. We've got a lot to learn from them. We take it 50-50. I'll teach you and you teach me. Number two, we have to make time to observe our students and our children. If you ever want to see what your child is like, if you really want to see what little Tommy is like as a person when you go to the barbecue with all the friends, then you go and stand away from the children, let them play and watch and take notes. Is my child good at sharing? Is my child good at communicating? Is my child patient? And take notes, mental notes. You'll get a really good understanding by observing. This is a fact. Montessori does this very well. Number two, put the child at the center of their learning. What does that mean? It means I need to know my child. I need to know what gets them going, what their hook is. And when I know what their hook is, I need to water that seed and let it grow, because that will build their confidence. That will allow them to want to engage with learning. Once you know their hook, you're halfway there. Number two, we have to allow our children to be independent, and we have to allow them to be confident. We'll talk about that in just a second. So number four, mistakes are encouraged. We must allow our children to make mistakes. I've often seen parents slap the hands of children. No, don't do that. You're about to make a mistake. This is the way it goes. Let me fix that for you very quickly. But the reality is we should let them make the mistake. They'll only make the mistake once, and we'll come to that a little bit later too. But they'll only make the mistake once. Have you ever put your hand in a candle in the flame? You know it's hot, but you only know it's hot because you've done it once. If you've never done it, you want to feel it, so you don't do it again. This is a fact, and we need to allow this to happen. We need to make sure that we're not comparing our children against other children. There are 15 billion cells in a child. It's very hard to compare those 15 billion to the child standing next to them. Each and every child is different and unique. We shouldn't be comparing them. What we should actually be doing is comparing them to who they were yesterday, just allowing them to move one step forward. Then they're making progress. Make sure that it's not only your child that's accountable, it's also you that's accountable. I have a saying, it's never the child's fault, which sometimes doesn't go down too well with some people, but that's my belief. Everything is learned behavior. It's also your fault. It's everyone's fault. It's the environment's fault. It's the surroundings' fault. The next one is students have a clear voice. Let them speak. When a child is speaking to you, let them finish their sentence. And when they finish talking, then you respond. Quite often we think that we're assisting them by finishing the sentence for them. Let me finish that sentence for you. Yes, Tommy's trying to say this. Actually, Tommy was already saying it in his own words. Let Tommy finish his sentence. And then he becomes confident to say, wow, my voice is really important here. I'm heard, I'm listened to. And the last one is have a look at essential skills, and we'll come to that in just a second. Now, the reason I've got this picture on the screen is this. These are two boys in my class. We were teaching the human heart and how it works and how to stay healthy. Now, I taught the human heart. I didn't teach them everything. I just inspired them. And then I said, by the way, when you prove to me that you know how the heart works and how we can take care of it, I will let you show me your research in any way you wish. Some children built a model. Some children did a report. Some children painted a picture. These two boys, they wanted to actually dissect a lamb's heart. So we got the lamb's heart in. I met one of them the other day. He is training to be a doctor. And I put that down to the fact that he had a chance to explore his passion in the way that he wanted. If I told him to fill in a worksheet, he would have not as been inspired as he was during this lesson. So it's about allowing them to have choice. So as I said earlier, education is about cultivating children who can be leaders of tomorrow. But what do we want from the leaders of tomorrow? So I put this together for you, or anybody else who wants to grab this one. This is an essential skills calendar. I did some research around the top 40 companies in the world: SpaceX, Wikipedia, Amazon, Facebook, Google, all of these organizations. And I looked for what were they looking for in their new recruits. And it wasn't about grades, points, scores, percentages, or rankings. It was about skills. It was about what skills did they have? Were they humble? Did they have love? Were they funny? Did they have some humor? Did they know how to take a joke and also pass a joke? Were they independent? Were they confident? Were they resilient? Did they have emotional intelligence? Did they know how to set goals? Could they make sure they were always giving back? Were they a mentor? Did they know how to motivate others? And these are skills that we often put by the wayside. We leave them to the side. We think about academics at A, B, C, or D, 100%, top of the class, ducks of the school, but we forget actually there is a whole array of skills that if we allow our students when they're very young to practice, then they will become leaders of tomorrow, because they'll walk into those industries with humility and with empathy and with resilience. And when they're standing in the board meeting and the CFO says, I think we should cut down the forest to build a new coal mine, they will say, hey, I don't think that's a very good idea because of these reasons. They've got the confidence to speak up. And it's very, very important. Now, for anyone who wants this, I've just made a quick QR code. If you want to scan it, you'll get a copy of that. We'll just go onto your technology, on your device, on your computer. You can use it in your house, you can use it in your classroom, whenever you like. But while you're doing that, let me tell you a really interesting and very cool fact. A child of today sitting in kindergarten will graduate in 2033, okay? That's 11 years from now. Now, you might think that you know what the world will be like then, but you don't. 11 years ago, there was no Tesla cars on the road. Google Maps had not been invented, and the iPhone had just come out, right? So you might be thinking, I know what it's going to be like. Well, you don't. Obviously, things are going to move quickly. So you don't know what content your children will need, but you do know one thing. You know what skills they will need. They'll need to be empathetic. They need to have love. They'll need to know how to manage their time. They'll need to know how to be humble. They'll need to know how to be resilient and perceptive and understanding and determined, all these skills that we often forget. But if we make sure that these are in the forefront of our minds, then we can use them. So I'll tell you a quick story, and then we'll end it there and we'll go to questions. How can we make learning purposeful? Well, I believe that it's all about allowing the children to have and play a part in what we call big work. And big work is work that seems impossible even for an adult to complete. But it's work that they can do when they're a child. And when they accomplish something like this, then real magic happens. Now, in 2017, I was very lucky, and I've been there many times, to go to Nepal. In the bottom right corner, you will see a picture that looks like a prison cell with some children in it. It's actually a classroom in southern Nepal, down near the Indian border. And I met the lady working in there, and she was called Padma. And I said, what are you doing here? And she said, I'm a teacher. This is my classroom. I said, this is a terrible classroom. How can you ever teach in here? She said, this is all I've got. And I said, okay, well, I can't leave it like this. I'm going back to Australia, and I'm going to come back in 6 weeks. I'm fixing your classroom for you. Actually, I didn't know what I was even saying because I'd never done that before. In fact, I can't even put up a shelf in my house. I can now, but I couldn't then. So I thought, how am I going to achieve this goal? And there was only one answer. I was going to get the children to assist me. So I went back to school. I showed the children an arrangement of pictures, and they said, Gavin, we want to help. And these children were between 6 years old and 12 years old. And what happened was they started to collect things: pencils, rulers, rubbers, clothes, books, shells, Montessori materials, and they put them into suitcases outside my office. After 2 months, there was about 10 suitcases filled with stuff. Everything was there, ready to go. I flew to the Himalayas. I went back to Padma's school. I turned up, and in a weekend, we changed what looked like a prison cell into this beautiful room in the bottom right corner where we painted the walls, put the carpets down. We put all the kids' stuff all around the room, the stuff that children had decided to bring. And I said to the kids, I can't do without you. If you don't help, I don't know what to do. So Gavin, we're going to collect everything. So I took it all there. And then when we opened the doors, the children came in, and magic happened. It was really amazing. We did a dance, the children put on their new clothes, and they all started to use these materials. And then these two amazing things happened, which really makes me have a shiver down my spine. On the left-hand side, a little girl started using one of the pink towels that a child had donated and doing a lesson in the corner. Almost immediately. No teacher was required. She was automatically started teaching a lesson to a group of kids, no parents, no adults involved. On the right-hand side, and this is the bit that gives me goosebumps, this is the child's first ever picture. He'd never seen a piece of paper. He'd never drawn a picture in his entire life. Now, a little boy in my school gave me a little set of colored pencils. That's all he had. He said, Gavin, these are from Nepal. There's about 6 pencils. And when I came back to Australia, I showed that picture to him. He was only 6. And I said, you know those pencils you gave me from your bedroom? I said, this little boy drew his first ever picture using your pencils. And he said, Gavin, I'm going to collect some more pencils, right? And what that says to all of us is that when children play a part in making the world a better place, when we give them the choice to take on big projects, and we say, I'll leave it to you. If you fail, it's okay, but I'll be here as your guide. Yeah. Then we allow them to change the world. And when the boy who donated those pencils graduated from primary school, he stood and he did his graduation speech and he said, I want to work for a charity when I'm older. And I asked him why later, and he said, because it feels good to do good. And that's really, really important. And we go back to this quote by Aristotle. If you educate the mind without the heart, it's no education at all, which is true. And I'll finish with this quote. When we allow our students to follow their passion, to find their niche, and to work with true intention and purpose, the essential skills that will set them up for life, taught not by the teachers, but through experience. And we call this the circle of learning. We must make sure when our children embark on any project that's going to change the world, that they always get the feedback of what happened at the end. And we can do that on a micro scale, we can do that on a macro scale, but we can all play our part and allow our children to feel that they're changing the world every single day. And that brings me to the end, which is thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Gavin, for that amazing presentation. And I know myself, we have so many points that we need to talk about, because as you were going through them, I was like, and I was like, yeah, so I wrote a few things down, because I think the most important thing for everyone listening out there is that even though, you know, Gavin's talking from an education point of view or with primary age children, whatever it is, the fundamental principles and the values, Gavin, of what we're discussing today applies to everyone and in every home and every age, because these principles that we're talking about, whether it's gratitude, humility, the confidence or the excitement that the children feel when they do these projects and what you were just talking about, that can be cultivated from such a young age. And it could be as simple as trusting a young child with a tiny glass cup as their first experience, right? And I think that when we think about how can we apply those principles to the home, I'd love you to talk a little bit to our audience about what these principles that you were just mentioning looks like for them when it comes to the home.
Well, obviously, you can start from a very, very early age. There's no question about that. But I think these principles that we talk about, they really set our children up. And you can tell this, you know, I'm a primary school teacher. I also have a preschool, you know, I have a 3 to 6 diploma as well. So I've worked in preschools as well. But the fact is, when you see a child coming into primary school who's been allowed to have freedom and independence and choice when they're very young and make those mistakes, then they come into primary school so much more confident, not that they are more able, but actually that they feel it's okay to try new things. I think that, you know, if I had to sum it up as to what, you know, education is all about, it should be a place where children have the confidence to try new things, but the resilience to fail and try again. And I think that when we're in the very early years, we can allow these things to happen. So, I mean, let's take a few examples. For example, let's talk about packing your own bag. Okay, now I've worked in schools for 25 years. And, you know, I like to I'm a very big observer. So you're just looking at the parents, you're looking at the kids, you're looking at the whole mechanism, and you're just seeing what's happening. Because you're thinking to yourself, what parent workshop do I need to put on next? What's missing? What's not happening? How can I clarify some things with our cohort here? And so you see parents, for example, carrying a child's bag to school. Now, that's really beautiful, I think, and really helpful and really kind and really lovely and wonderful. But the reality is that if you said to the child, look, I've got my own bag. Like, I'm going to work in a minute and I've got my bag on. I can't carry two bags. I've only got two shoulders. You've got two shoulders too. You're carrying your bag. And a child puts their bag on and says, well, Dad, it's so heavy. My bag's so heavy. So, well, you know, that's terrible. I feel terrible for you. What are you going to do about that? Child says, well, I think I'm going to take some stuff out of my bag. That is a great idea, little Tommy. When you get home tonight, let's think about what you need and what you don't. Do you really need those 5,000 Pokemon cards? No, actually, they're really heavy, Dad, and they're hurting my back, so I'm going to leave them at home tomorrow. Okay, maybe you can take a few Pokemon cards. And so what happens is you have this negotiation, this compromise. It takes a bit of time at the very beginning, right? There's a lot of talking, a lot of explaining, a lot of understanding. But give it 2 weeks and the child's getting ready for school and they're 3 and they've got their bag open. You've got your bag open. You're saying, hey, Tommy, I'm getting ready for work. You're going to get ready for school tomorrow? What have you got on tomorrow? I've got swimming. Okay, well, what will you need? I'll need my swimming trunks. Where are they? Oh, I'll go and get those. I'll go and get my laptop. I'll need that. And so you're modeling this organization, this timekeeping, this preparation. And the child wants to be you. You're the parent. Like, they're looking at you with open eyes and they're saying, I'm going to replicate what my parents do. What they are, I'm going to be. They want to do big work. They want to do adult work. I'll never forget when my dad was shaving when I was younger. I said, Dad, I want to shave. I didn't have a beard. I was only 8. And he said, you'll regret ever having to shave. But he put the shaving foam on me and I had a pretend shave, you know, with a fake razor. I wanted to be like him because he was my dad. And that's what our children want. So packing your own bag, and you forget your hat, or you forget your lunch, or you forget your teddy. What happens in school when dad or mum has packed the bag and something's missing is the child quickly goes, my teddy bear's missing. It was my dad's responsibility to pack it. I'm now going to have a meltdown. And I want my teddy. And then the school ends up ringing Dad. Dad leaves the office. He drives home, gets the teddy, drives to school, passes it over to the receptionist. She brings it to Tommy. Tommy gets his teddy bear. Everything's fine. But if it was his responsibility to pack the teddy and he forgot it, you're not going to have the meltdown. He's going to be upset, but he's going to say, it was my fault, actually. I left it on the bed. I forgot all about it. And he'll be sad, but he won't forget it again because he knows that he wants it so much. Same with the hat, same with the sunscreen, same with the lunch, same with all those things. So small things like packing your bag, these things, choosing your clothes. And you might think to your listeners might be thinking, I can't let my child choose my clothes. They'll go to school dressed as Superman every single day. You know, that's what they want to do. But there's a way to navigate that, isn't there? You know, you put 3 piles of clothes out pre-prepared. You say, hey, you can choose what clothes you want to wear from these 3 piles that I prepared. Because the child goes, well, I'm heard, I'm listened to, I get a choice. I'm respected in this household. I get to choose just like everybody else. And you slowly drip feed these things into your child's psyche, and they become confident. You become resilient. They become determined. They've got all the skills ready to go forward. And you can do them in really small ways, but at the beginning they take time and they're quite onerous. But later, when your child's packing their bag, packing their own lunch, you know, tidying their own bedrooms, dressing themselves, choosing their own clothes, you're like, wow, I can relax here. This guy's got everything covered. And then when they go to primary school, and they've got to do independent work or research or write a report or get a group together or something like this, what happens is they're not going to the teacher. Miss, do you mind if Miss, is it possible if they just do it. They go, well, I am confident enough to choose where I want to sit. I'm confident enough to choose the materials I want. And I'm confident enough to represent my research in a way that suits me. And they just have those core skills. And the sooner that we can embed them into our children from a very early age, the better. I'll give you an interesting statistic, which is really cool. 70% of everything you ever learn in your entire life is in before you are 7 years old. 70%. Now, you might think to yourselves, that can't be true, Gavin. That's not true. What about all the books I've read and the documentaries I've watched and the novels and all of this stuff? But it's not about facts. It's about learning how to live. It's about learning how to look at somebody else in the eye. It's about learning how to read body language. It's about learning how to do all of those things that are ungradable, uncountable, unrankable. All those things you learn before you're 7. So we need to just take heed of that and say, okay, What is my child learning about the way the world works and how they are going to be part of it before they're 7 years old? It's not about the facts, although they're very important. It's very important to hold your pencil, sit up straight, to add 2 numbers or, write a sentence. They're very important. But it's also very important to learn how to have a conversation, how to listen actively, how to negotiate, compromise, how to manage your time. All those things are also important. And as adults, it's our job to model them, but also allow our students to experience them. You can't teach a child to be confident. You can't say, today we're going to learn how to be confident. Well done. You're now confident. Great A. You've got to let them overcome a hurdle. So when they say, Mom, can I build a model of a volcano out of papier-mâché and glue? You say, of course you can. There's no problem. You know where all the things are. You go and do that. But there's a couple of rules. You have to put everything back when you're finished. You can't make a mess. It's got to be done by 5 o'clock because grandma's coming over. And remember, we're going to the cinema. And the child goes, no problem, Mom. I'm on it. And they make this model of a papier-mâché volcano, and it collapses. There's too much glue. There's not enough paper. It collapses, a big soggy mess. It's a disaster. Then you reflect. What happened? Well, I rushed it. I didn't read the instructions. I was in a rush. I wasn't taking care. I was, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to try again. This time I'm going to read the instructions because I don't want it to be a disaster. I don't want to cry like this again. Okay, no problem. But if you help them too much, then that doesn't happen. And resilience doesn't appear. Confidence has failed. So I think it's really important to make sure that in every single avenue possible, we're allowing our children to experience life.
Yeah, absolutely, Gavin. And I think when we're talking about, say, we're talking about toddlers and 3-year-olds or even, 1-year-olds. And the thing is that I want all of the parents and our community and caregivers that are out there that are listening to take these key points that Gavin was talking about. So allowing for opportunities for independence, because I think a lot of the time as the adult in the space, we ourselves get in the way. And because we always have this idea that, they're not mature enough yet. They don't understand, especially if you have a nonverbal toddler, they don't have the capability to do that. It's not safe for them to do that. So when we're talking about giving them opportunities for independence or to make choices, those things come down to the really small everyday things. And it could be the daily routines that you have at home, like Gavin said, whether it's putting shoes on, choosing this one or this one, setting up the environment. So making sure that the child has access to that, because a lot of the time we don't give them access to things in the kitchen that are obviously unsafe. If you want them to start packing away their dishes after they finish and you're worried that they can't reach up the sink, just put a small little tub down on the floor, near the kitchen, and let them pack away their dishes in there. That's the small changes that you can make in the environment, which are really important to have these opportunities for the child to build their skill set. And this is what we're talking about, all these amazing examples of them taking on projects, making decisions, following what it is that they would like to do. It all starts with these small, really, step-by-step opportunities that they're going to have in early childhood. And that comes from the home, but it also comes from ourselves as the adult, of letting go of these ideas that we have that we think that children are not capable, because and obviously within reason. So if you know that your child has a certain skill and they might be able to practice holding a glass, obviously if a child doesn't have that grip yet, that might not be the right step to take at that moment. So it does come back to observation. But if you do find that your child has the skill set to be holding a glass, it's okay if they hold it and it slips or if it breaks, because that then becomes the learning opportunity that Gavin was talking about, right? And then it's modeling. Okay, this has happened. The glass is, dropped on the floor. Let's move back. Let's stay safe. And then, modeling how to clean that up. And that's just a small example, but it's about, I wanted to bring the attention to the adult, because when we're talking about young children, I see it all the time when, the parent, and we take on a lot of that caregiving for the child, changing them, dressing them, packing their bag, carrying their bag, holding 50 things, and I see the child walk out of the preschool and it's like, here's your bag. Would you like to hold your drink bottle, because mum's got 50 things and a baby and. So it's about, really empowering the child to be able to make those decisions and taking off that load as a parent or as a mother or a father or a caregiver, that you have to do those things for your child, because I know as well, Gavin, and you might know culturally, if you don't do these things for your child, you're not a good parent, right? If you don't feed your child, or if you don't, look after them and care for them, it's almost seen as you're doing them a disservice, where I actually see it as the opposite, because you're not giving them the opportunity to build these skills. And I don't know if you have any commentary on that.
No, I completely concur with what you're saying. And I've got an interesting, you're talking about, parents and time at home, time at school. In a given month, a child will spend around about 140 hours in school in any month, and they'll spend 540 at home. Wow. 540. So this is why this conversation is so important, because when parents understand, and when grandparents, grandparents are, they're 80 years old. They did things very differently 80 years ago. Okay, so you hand them over to grandpa, and grandpa will say something completely different to the school. Parents are halfway there, but it's really important that everyone's on the same page, because if we're all singing the same tune, then our students get to really, flourish in that department. But here's a really good analogy for you. When I was working in one particular Montessori school, we developed a system called the educational void, right? Now, it sounds a bit dark and twisted, but what it was just a space in the curriculum. And this can happen in the home too. It's a space where nothing happens. Nothing. There's nothing planned. Quite often we're going swimming, and after swimming, going to horse run, we're going to Tommy's house, it's a birthday party, and then straight over there, we're going to have a sleepover, and then it's back home, we're going to watch a documentary, put to bed, and go to sleep. Like, it's too much. We need to have some space for our students just to be, and just be bored. Not be bored, but children are very creative. So we developed this system where we had a space in the curriculum where there was nothing happening every single day. Nothing at all. But there's just one rule. And the rule was, you can do anything you want in that time, and you can work wherever you want with whoever you choose, and you can work on anything you like, but it has to be related to one of the lessons that you've had this week, right? So we gave them this space, and it was half an hour every single day between 12 and 12:30. And we gave every child a diary in the class. This is really magical. And we said, you need, every morning when you come to school, the first thing you do is you plan, what are you going to do in your educational void time, right? No word of a lie, I stood over two 6-year-olds sitting at a table. One said to the other one, they both had their diaries open. One said to the other one, hey, what are you doing at 12:30? And the boy said, I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided. It's because, do you want to draw a diagram of a Tyrannosaurus Rex? He said, I'd love to do that. Okay, you write it down in your diary, and I'll meet you on the circle table. You bring the colors, and I'll bring the card, and maybe we can collect some books. And then they both wrote down in their diary, 12:30, circle table, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Everything was spelled wrong. Doesn't matter about that, right? Tyrannosaurus Rex was definitely spelled wrong. Doesn't matter about that. What matters is they had executive functioning, these two children. They were planning their time. They were predicting the future. They were getting organized. They knew that they had a void to fill, and they were going to fill it with something really fun that was on their terms. And we can do that with our children. We can give them space and say, okay, look, there's nothing on a Wednesday between 4 and 6. You can do whatever you like. It's up to you. Here's all the things you can use. Here's your space in the house where everything's yours, the paints, the cards, everything's there. You can make whatever you like. There's only one rule. You've got to put it back when you finish. It's got to be as tidy as this when it's over. And off you go. All good. And everything's yours. And then your children will go, oh, my goodness, look at all this freedom I've got. Look how trusted I am. Look at all this creativity that I can now cultivate. And we just need to have that, because quite often we really try to fill all the time up with activities. Let's keep them entertained. But that, being creative, Sir Ken Robinson talked about this in his speech at TEDx, the most famous TED talk of ever. He said that creativity is key, and it is. And when are we the most creative? When we're given space to think and with no limitations. And I think we need to have that in our classrooms, in our preschools, but more importantly, to have that in our homes too, where our children are allowed to just be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a huge point that you mentioned in giving children some space and to have that time to be creative, because as caregivers and parents, like, we do have this, rigid system and, it's this time. And yes, we know that young children thrive off routines and all that. However, within those routines, it's so important to allow them the space. And this is what I think that the Montessori philosophy really brings into the home and into the classroom, because it absolutely allows children to have that freedom. And we know that freedom comes with limits, because we're not talking here about freedom for the child to do anything and everything that they possibly want to do, especially when you're talking about a toddler, and they want to explore and they want to do all these things. Those come within limits. And we know that those limits exist, which are, respecting the environment, respecting others, and respecting themselves. So there are always boundaries around that. But someone was just saying here that it's such a good point. Many parents think that the child always needs to be entertained. And it's interesting the more that you actually entertain your children, the more that they get used to not knowing how to do it themselves. So you actually, by giving them the opportunity of not having anything there, or that space like you were talking about, you're giving them the opportunity to build problem solving, critical thinking. Okay, what have we got around here? What can I do? What can I create? And I think that it really comes back to what's stopping you from allowing your child to do that. Because I feel like sometimes it's like, well, they need to do this, they need to do that, they need to learn this, I need to teach them this, I need to make sure that they know their 1, 2, 3, their ABC. But yet, if you actually give the child the space and the opportunity in the environment to do that, you'll be so surprised how children thrive when you actually just take a step back a little bit.
That's right. Exactly right. And if you think about it, when we're teaching things like, patterns and algebra, let's just take that for example, right? Patterns and algebra, we've all done this lesson before where you're like, spot the pattern. Oh, it's counting in 2s, it's counting in 3s, all this kind of stuff. But if you actually watch a child with a box of Lego or a box of different colored beads, and you just let them go free on it, they'll start to take them out, they'll investigate them, they'll touch them, they'll taste them, they'll want to do all these things with them. Slowly but surely, they'll start to put them in order. All the red ones go here. I'm going to put them into a triangle shape. All the green ones go over there. I'm going to count them out. I'm going to put them in a big long line and lay them out. And this is mathematics. This is patterns and algebra. This leads into equations later down the track. But we don't see the value in that. We don't see the value because we can't give it a tick. There's no end result. There's no number 2. 2 plus 2. Oh, it's 4. It's 4. There's an answer there. I know they're learning something. It's not that. Actually, learning can take place everywhere, and we just need to understand where to look and what learning looks like. It's exactly right. The old analogy of modeling the behavior you wish to view is very, very important indeed, because, when it comes to children doing work, well, work for you is play for the child. Have you ever tried vacuuming with a child? They want to vacuum. They're like, when can I vacuum? So if you're cleaning the house and you want your children to feel mature, responsible, that they have a part to play in the whole mechanism that we call the household, and have them as some small cleaning materials. Sounds terrible, like you've got child labor on the go, but it's not. You say, I'm sweeping up now. Would you like to help me? I'd love to.
I love it.
And they don't do a very good job, but the whole process of these gross motor skills, and they're looking over, am I doing a good job? Mom, you're doing a great job. Wonderful. I'm now going to wipe this table. You're going to wipe that table? Okay, I'm going to spray the spray. And all these things build into, there's a wonderful, wonderful bit of research around Montessori where she had children wiping the table in an anti-clockwise direction. Have you seen this one before? It's really beautiful.
No.
So children in a Montessori environment, they wipe the table in an anti-clockwise direction, just like this. And if you think about it, wiping like this turns into this. And this is every single letter, your A, your E, your B, your C. So all of that work, which seemed like was pointless task, actually comes straight into handwriting. So, and there's lots of avenues just like that take place. I think, one of the most important facts is just because your child cannot respond doesn't mean they cannot understand.
Yes.
Yes. So you ever tried this? There's a door and it's ajar, and your child is nonverbal, cannot speak, maybe even can just crawl. And you say, hey, Tommy, can you close the door? And, the whole tone of your voice, your finger points, the child looks, doesn't quite, I think they want me to close the door. I'm just going to crawl over. I'm going to push the door closed. And everyone's like, wow, you close the door. They close the door because 70% of all communication is nonverbal. It's not about talking. It's about the pointing and the eyes and the tone that you used. So everything you say, everything you do, every action you take is learning for your child. And so every action that they follow through with is also learning for them too. And we just need to make sure that we're looking at everything as learning, potential learning. It's not about ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, or doing your times tables. Those things are important, yes. But there's a whole other side to education, which we sometimes forget.
And I think, that's all the practical life side of things, right? And the social skills and the modeling. And these are all like essential, foundational life building skills. Like the kids take these, for the rest of their life. And I think practical life at home is such a huge thing that you can do. I mean, I have a lot of parents asking for, activities that they can do with their kids and all that. Just provide them the opportunities to do what you do in your daily routine. Because if you did that, then it saves you the stress from having to think about an activity to do for the child, because they are contributing to their space and they're involving in, and that's all that children want to do. Like you were saying, Gavin, it's exactly that. They want to wipe the table. They want to spray that spray bottle. I don't know what 16 or 18-month-old doesn't love spraying the spray bottle or playing with water. It's like the be all and end all of all activities. You don't even need to buy them anything for Christmas. Just give them 2 jugs with water and, with a little tray and a sponge. And that's that's what they're interested in doing. So I think that instead of overthinking it, I mean, I had a question come through and it was like, well, I really struggle to let go. How do I do that? That's a really great question. And I think it takes a lot of reflection as a caregiver to understand, okay, where are my hesitations coming from? Why am I struggling to give my child a little bit of, freedom or that independence? Am I worried? Am I anxious? What am I nervous about? And really kind of breaking that down, which can be a really kind of a deep exercise to do with yourself. I know we run lots of self-care workshops and stuff to really understand where our behaviors and where our thinking is coming from. Because a lot of the time it comes from society, it comes from the people around us, it comes from the grandparents that are saying, oh no, don't let them touch that, and oh don't let them do this, and and then it brings on that nervousness and anxiety in us going, oh okay, no, maybe they can't do that and they know better. And so it's really the work to answer that question. It's really important to try and understand where that is coming from, the letting go and struggling to do that. And then also having a list of things where you feel safe to allow your child to do in a way that won't give you that anxiety, so that you're finding a balance here and then slowly working on that. Because once you see that the child is so capable and once you see that they're able to do that, you're like, wow, I didn't even think that my child could do that. And it gives you that confidence to then, give them a little bit more and more. So I think that that's a huge point as well to consider when thinking about letting go.
Yeah, I would say that, with the answer to that question, what do you do when you're having fear of letting go? You take it really slowly. Take it really slowly.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a dog. I had a pet dog when I was a child, and he'd walk really close to us in the house and in the garden too. And it was the first day of going to the field, and there's a big field, and I was like, we were going to let him off the lead. But I was so scared that if I just unhook him, he'll just go into the forest. I'll never see him again. And so I was anxious about that. I was thinking, like, what's going to happen when I let him go here? Is he going to bolt? And so slowly, we just made a longer lead until we finally felt secure that he wasn't going to run away. And with our children, although they're not dogs, obviously, there's no correlation between, my anxiety around my dog is what I was trying to relay there. But with our children, it's very important to take it really, really slowly indeed. So that we feel safe and they also feel safe. They'll need to feel safe, and we emanate, it oozes out of us. If we're anxious, they go, my mum's anxious, I can feel it just coming out of her like an energy. I've got it too. I'm feeling anxious too. But if we're feeling confident, then they'll also feel confident. And I think the second point is to prepare your household for that independence to take place, So to say, okay, in this space over here, nothing can occur. Well, obviously, there's always something that can occur, but very limited things can occur over here. And just let your child go into that space on their own, and then just sit back and watch, and don't touch, and don't interject, don't interrupt, don't go over, oh, Mom, what are you doing over here? Just
sit on your hands. Yes, sit on your hands.
Sit on your hands. You're not allowed to go to the toilet. Exactly right. Yeah, just watch and see how capable they are. especially if there's two of them. So if you have two children working together, you'll see magic. You'll see conversations, you'll see sharing, you'll see, negotiation, and you'll start to realize my child actually has a lot of skills here that I wasn't aware of because I've been too busy doing it for them or trying to make them not make any mistakes. And I think that's the big thing that comes from parents especially, and even teachers too, is if they get something wrong and going to look bad. If they're trying to pour their water in the cafe with a big jug and they spill it and it falls on the floor, everyone's going to look and it's going to be a terrible moment. I'm going to be judged as a terrible parent. Well, it's having the confidence in yourself also to know that you're not. Even if some people were to look and frown, look at that woman over there. She's letting her child pour their own water. I can't believe it. And, and they do drop it and it smashes everywhere. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in actual fact. You can have a conversation afterwards and say, what happened? Oh, I wasn't holding it tight enough. Or let me show you how to hold it properly next time. Let's do it again. You do it again. You'll never have to, worry about that again. So there's a lot of anxiety around us as well, about social anxiety. How are we being looked at from the outside world? Am I actually being a good parent too? But we just need to be confident in ourselves that what we're doing is right by our own, by our own limitations and our own judgment as to what seems right to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you were talking about like stepping back and allowing children to kind of navigate these things themselves, even because I know a lot of things that we talk about, Gavin, is sibling rivalry, especially when we have one that's kind of like around the 3, and then you've got a 12-month-old as well. So like sometimes that when they're getting into these confrontations, or they're having, someone was using something and then the other child took it off them, and parents usually always step in at that moment. And I think when we talk about modeling and being able to model for the child what that looks like, so allow them the space to really try and navigate that situation. If you think that you need to step in, find the right time to do that, because giving them a little bit of space instead of just jumping straight in will actually show you a lot about your child, and also where it is that you need to then help them to model and communicate for them, especially if they're nonverbal.
100%. I have a really good story. A turning point in my educational career was and many parents and teachers will do this out there in the world. So there's 2 kids sitting at a table and they're talking. All lesson, they're talking. What do? You say, you two, separate. You over there, you're talking too much, you're not listening, and they separate. Now, what happens in a child's mind is they say, if I break the rules in this room and do something wrong, my teacher or my parent spots it and they're going to fix it. So I can just break the rules, and the repercussion of that is that I get moved, and then I get to learn and listen. So I can just do that, no problem. So, I was one of those teachers who would move them. I'd say, you two move, you're talking, and they'd move, no problem. There'd be a bit of backlash, but they'd move in the end. So when I suddenly started to discover Montessori and I started to do my diploma, I took a different turn. So children were talking in class and I'd let them just talk the entire time. They were talking away, doing no work at all. End of the class, I'd say, okay, guys, amazing. I like to see your books. Just put them on my desk. I'm going to go through them. And then I'd get these 2 guys as they were going out the door, and I said, hey, I noticed that there's nothing in your books. How come? Oh, well, we were talking. Oh, you were talking. Oh, that's really terrible that you were talking for the entire lesson, because the next lesson we're doing an experiment, scientific experiment. We're going to mix calcium with this carbonate. And we're going to, but I'm afraid because you haven't got the foundation knowledge, you're not going to be able to do that experiment. I'm so sorry. It's not a punishment. It's just that because you haven't got the knowledge, it's impossible to do it.
Natural consequence.
Said, Mr. McCormack, can we stay in at lunchtime and finish the work? I said, well, look, if you think that's the right idea. So at lunchtime, they came in and they did all the work and they finished it. And we reflected on it. I didn't need to separate them. The environment did that job for me. I just needed to let them know that this is what happens if you do that. And it's the old, putting if you don't put your things away, you can't find them. When the child says, I can't find my shoes, where do you put them? I don't know. You put them away, Mum. That's your job. Actually, no, you put them away. So let's think. Okay, if I always put them in the same spot, I'll always find them. And so it's just having that reflection and allowing to have that conversation to say, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? How can it be fixed? I'm not here to fix everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a comment here, setting the environment is helpful and trusting the child. Definitely. When parenting or reparenting, trusting the child can be tough. Absolutely. It takes so much, especially when we're talking about reparenting, which is when, you really reflect on the way you were raised and, your parents parented, and then think, okay, well, maybe I want to try something different. And that's even with your teaching journey. It's like, okay, well, this is what we were taught, but hey, I found this information now, Montessori. What can I do with that? How can I reflect on that? And what is it going to look like? So yeah, it is absolutely. We're running out of time, and I wanted to actually show everyone. I have this amazing book. Gavin is an author, and he has some amazing books out there, and we're going to drop the link for The Potential in Every Child. Now, if you haven't read this, it's incredible. I've marked a couple of pages. So basically, it takes you through. Gavin, you might want to just quickly talk about the book. And I'm telling you guys, I'm not a big reader. So if you are not, this is the easiest book to read. On every single page, there's a beautiful little kind of like quote. So prepare your child for new horizons, discuss feelings and emotions. We know how important those are. But on the topic of independence, it's got these little tips. Get children to fold, sort, and put away their own laundry. Allow your children to help with cooking. So it's got over 100, is it, Gavin? Over 100 examples?
Yeah, so basically, during my Montessori degree, I did an early childhood diploma in Montessori education, and I discovered all of these amazing things that we can do as teachers, as parents at home, and they're so simple. And I know there's a lot of big, thick books out there filled with all of this jargon and text. And so what I wanted to do is make something that was easy on the eye, and you could
Fabulous.
pick it up and you could literally just, read a page a day, for example. So
Yeah.
it's all the wonderful tidbits that I picked up over the years of how we can change the way that we interact with our child at home to develop them and prepare them for a future that we yet to know. Because all in here, basically, you've got a series of actions, and they're all research based around what we can do at home to allow our children to be prepared for basically as you're leaving preschool going into primary school. So I put 100 of them in here, and my wonderful friend illustrated every single page beautifully. So anyway, if you want to grab a
Fabulous.
copy,
I love it.
it's on Amazon in every country in the world. So
Yeah.
you can grab a
Yeah,
copy.
we've popped the links into the chat, and we'll pop them on our YouTube channel. And if anyone's looking for it, just let us know. It's such a easy read. It's beautifully illustrated, and you can, like you said, you can just flick to any page. I love books like that because it's really practical. People don't have a lot of time to sit there, read something cover to cover. So those tips it's such a great one, especially if you're looking for bringing out that potential in your child. I wanted to say, resources like this and community and support is so important when we're talking about raising children and caregiving for children for our future generations. And things like this, and even our Guide and Grow Village app, it takes you through step by step, but you have a community of like-minded individuals to support you on your journey and talk about all these amazing and interesting topics. And you feel like a more confident caregiver because you know that you can bounce ideas and have discussions like we have. I'm so happy, Gavin, that you came onto Guide and Grow TV and you were able to share all that expertise with us and all your stories. I know that our audience has absolutely gotten so much out of today. So I thank you for sharing your time, and for everyone that's listening as well. Thank you for being with us and taking the time out of your evening or your day to really take in this rich information. And I know that you'll go home or go back to your schools and feel inspired to try some of these.
Well, look, I want to say thank you to you too, Sylvie, for having me. It's been really lovely to be here. I'm a big fan of you and your work. You do wonderful stuff, and your community, obviously. So, if you ever need anything or want to do anything like this again, then let's do it, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you'd like to see Gavin back on back on our channel talking about any specific topic, please drop a comment, drop a link. We've got some thank yous coming through. Thank you, Gavin, from Sarisha. Thanks, Guide and Grow, from Heather. We got a thank you so much, Sylvia and Gavin. This was so inspiring. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sylvia and Gavin. So everyone, if you'd like to watch this again, just #replay. Thank you all so much for joining us once again. Take care, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.